I've spent my life looking for value in things other people overlook. In my line of work, we have a saying: the most expensive thing you can buy is a lie. I've spent decades unmasking corporate fraud, tracing offshore accounts, and looking for the one decimal point that doesn't belong. I can tell you what a company is worth by looking at a single ledger. I can tell you what a person is worth, not in dollars, but in character, inside of 10 minutes. But I committed the one error an auditor can never afford to make. I assumed that because my son was blood, he shared my ledger. I assumed that because my daughter-in-law smiled for the cameras, her heart wasn't in arrears. That's my mother, Martha. She's 84. She grew up in a house with dirt floors and worked 3 jobs to put me through school. She's the kind of woman who saves rubber bands and makes the best peach cobbler in the state of Virginia. She's also the woman who, 24 hours ago, was told she was not a responsibility. My son, Jason, is 34. He's a lifestyle consultant, which, as far as I can tell, means he helps people look rich on the internet while I'm the one actually paying his mortgage. He met Alexis 5 years ago. Alexis is a brand architect. She sees the world in grids, filters, and color palettes. 3 years ago, I did something I thought was a legacy move. I owned a 4-story brownstone in the city and a beautiful estate in the suburbs. I moved into a smaller condo downtown and let Jason and Alexis move into the estate. I didn't give them the deed. My years in auditing taught me never to surrender title. But I gave them the family heritage grant. On paper, it looked like a high-end corporate allowance from a family trust. In reality, it was my personal money, funneled through a blind trust to give Jason a sense of success without the ego-bruising reality of a handout. My mother, Martha, moved into the guest suite of the estate after she had a mild, dizzy spell. It was a beautiful room with a view of the rose garden she had planted 40 years ago. But to Alexis, my mother wasn't a matriarch. She was a brand liability. She didn't fit the quiet luxury aesthetic. My mother likes floral aprons and humming hymns. Alexis likes minimalism and silence. The tension had been building for months. It showed up in the quiet logistics of the house. My mother's photos were moved from the mantel to a hallway, then to a drawer. Her chair at Sunday dinner migrated to the kitchen counter. Jason started talking about specialized care facilities while my mother stood right there, as if she were a piece of furniture that no longer fit the room. Last night was the Vance Legacy Gala. Alexis had spent $60,000 of trust money on imported orchids and a private jazz symphony. She wanted to announce her new luxury living partnership. I arrived early and went to see my mother. I found her in the laundry room. At 10 p.m., in a dark house, my 84-year-old mother was hand-washing her own nightgowns. "Mom, what are you doing?" I asked. "Oh, Daniel," she said, not looking up. I didn't want to bother the staff. Alexis said my vintage scents were clinging to the main machines, and it was affecting her silk linens. She said it was better if I handled my own things in the basement sink. My blood turned to ice. It was a feeling I recognized, the same feeling I get when a company's tax returns don't match their bank statements. A fraud was being committed in my own home. I walked upstairs into the ballroom. Alexis was holding court. She was telling a group of reporters how heritage and family were the pillars of her brand. Interesting words, Alexis, I said, stepping into the circle. Where is the head of this family? Where is Martha? Daniel, we've discussed this, she said, her smile not moving, but her eyes going cold. Martha is resting. She's at a stage where these high-energy events are just too much for her. She's in the basement, Alexis, I said, washing her own clothes because you told her she was a scent pollutant. She pulled me aside, her voice a sharp whisper. Listen to me. We are building a brand. Jason's career depends on this image. Your mother, she's embarrassing. She talks about the Great Depression at the dinner table. She wears shoes from 1995. She's simply not my responsibility anymore, Daniel. Jason and I have already toured the Cedars. We're moving her there on Monday. It's a responsibility we're ready to outsource. She said it with the clinical detachment of a CEO laying off a warehouse worker. Not my responsibility. I looked at Jason. He was standing 3 feet away. He heard it. He didn't flinch. He just adjusted his cufflink, the one I bought him for his wedding, and looked at the floor. Mom's getting older, Dad, he said. Alexis is right. We need to focus on our future. I see, I said calmly. You're focused on the future. It's just business then. Exactly, Alexis said, smirking. It's just business. Good, I said, because I'm an auditor, Alexis, and I just finished the review. I didn't make a scene. I've learned that anger is loud and burns out fast. Patience is quiet, and it keeps receipts. I walked out of that gala, took my mother to my condo, and made a single phone call. I called Dale at Northern Trust. Dale, I said, I need a full liquidation of the Vance Heritage Group accounts. Daniel, that's the account funding the estate, he said. The mortgage, the staff, the business expenses for Jason's firm. If you freeze that, the whole structure collapses. I'm not freezing it, Dale, I said. I'm reclaiming it. The contract for that grant has a moral turpitude clause and a title retention agreement. If the primary beneficiary fails to provide for the family legacy, the assets revert to the grantor. And the house, he asked. I never signed the deed over, Dale, I said. I only signed a permissive occupancy agreement. 8 hours from now, I want a 24-hour notice to quit served. There was silence. 24 hours. She said my mother wasn't her responsibility. I said, I'm just making sure she doesn't have any responsibilities left to worry about. The next morning, at 9:15, the brand architect met the process server. Mrs. Vance, I have a notice of revocation for the Vance Heritage Grant and a 24-hour notice to vacate the premises at 818 Cherry Hill Drive. This is a joke, Alexis said, laughing. This is my house. Actually, ma'am, the process server said. According to the county records, this property is held in an irrevocable trust owned by Daniel Vance. Your occupancy was contingent on the trust's funding. As of 8 a.m. today, that funding has been withdrawn. While Alexis was arguing with the sheriff, Jason was watching his brand evaporate. The company cars, the Tesla, the Porsche, were leased through the trust. The corporate credit cards, the ones they used for business dinners that were actually just parties, were canceled. By noon, the A-list life was over. I was back at the estate, sitting in my mother's rocking chair on the porch, when a white BMW screeched into the driveway. Jason and Alexis burst out like an invasion force. Daniel, what did you do? Alexis screamed. The bank froze everything. My followers are asking why our partnership gala check bounced. I didn't do anything, Alexis, I said, without looking up from my ledger. I simply audited the books, and I found a massive deficit in the family column. Dad, you can't do this, Jason said. We're your family. You're ruining us. I stood up and pulled a navy blue binder from my bag. Let's talk about ruined, Jason. Item 1. The $150,000 I paid for your business degree that you used to consult people on how to spend my money. Item 14. The $1,200 aesthetic fee you charged the trust last month for landscaping that was actually just removing your grandmother's rose bushes because they weren't on brand. Item 29. Your wife's statement last night that the woman who raised me is not a responsibility. She was dragging us down, Daniel, Alexis said, her face twisting. We were building something. You were building a house of cards on a foundation you didn't own, I said. You wanted an effortless life. Well, there is nothing more effortless than having nothing. Dad, please, Jason said, desperate. We'll bring her back. We'll put the roses back. Just sign the release. The release is gone, Jason, I said with a slow, dark smile. I've already transferred the funds into an irrevocable trust for Martha's medical research fund and her own future. And as for this house, I handed them a paper. That's your 24-hour notice, I said. The sheriff will be here at 9 a.m. tomorrow to inventory the trust assets, which includes everything in this house except the clothes on your backs. You're a monster, Alexis sobbed. No, Alexis, I said. I'm an auditor, and your account is closed. Alexis posted a text-only message online, taking a break from social media for mental health reasons. The top comment read, I heard the house was a rental. A for sale sign went up on the lawn. Jason and Alexis moved their boxes into a 2-bedroom apartment above a laundromat in a town 30 miles south. My mother and I ended up at a small, sun-drenched cabin by a lake. The smell of cedar and peach cobbler was thick in the air. We were laughing. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just the sound of a check not being signed. I learned that blood means nothing. Shared DNA is merely a biological coincidence, not a guarantee of loyalty. True family is whoever shows up. It's the person who answers the phone at midnight. It's the grandmother who knits through the pain because she wants her grandson to be warm. Jason took a job as a junior sales rep. He doesn't post about old money anymore. Mostly, he posts about the cost of gas. Alexis works at a department store, arranging clothing racks. I kept my promise to my mother. I took care of the shop. I took care of the name. And in the end, the truth took care of us. If you're listening to this, and you've ever been the family bank only to be treated like an embarrassment, hear me. Helping is a choice, not a debt. And a boundary doesn't have to be loud to be unbreakable. To the A-list life, my mother wasn't good enough for. Thanks for the $2 million refund. I think I'll use it to make sure she never has to wash a nightgown in a basement again.